Hello, I'm David Bulow, Director of Educational Programs at Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled Tomorrow is Today, Transforming the Business from Static Budgets to Real-Time Forecast. With CFOs avoiding the traditional annual budgeting exercise for rolling and real-time forecasting, they are increasingly reliant on business intelligence and predictive analytics to get a better handle of revenue and expense drivers and the related financial impact. Join Shyam Desigan, a technologist and CFO, who will share how he revamped the strategic budgeting process to a real-time forecasting process. While leveraging technology, it has enabled his business to turn operational outcome metrics into an actionable predictive forecasting model, and through this process drive key business decisions. Also see a demo on how the Adaptive Suite works in real time to enable and drive the journey discussed in this webinar. I would like to thank Adaptive Planning for helping us make this event possible and for their generous support, for which helps us deliver this webinar at no cost. A few items before we get started. For those who are returning, thank you. And for those who are new, welcome. Performative is the fastest growing online resource for senior level corporate finance, treasury, and accounting professionals. We provide a uniquely valuable online peer network which provides direct subject matter expert advice. We also recently launched our B2B marketplace, which is like Yelp, but for corporate fin products and services you may be using or looking to use. All of this is completely noise-free and without advertisements. Check it out at performative.com. The link to this presentation and a recording of this event will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours. If you'd like the current presentation to follow along, it is already posted on performative.com/resources for you to download. There are no CPE credits for today's event. We encourage you to ask questions by using the question box in the GoToWebinar panel. We do our best to have them answered. If we do not get to your question, we will forward them to the speakers so they can follow up with you directly. You will also be asked to take a short, less than 1 minute survey at the end of the presentation. Please give us your feedback so we can bring you the best content possible and continually improve. It is with great pleasure to introduce our first of two speakers, Shyam Desigan. Shyam is an innovative finance and information technology executive with over 13 years of strong leadership experience. His leadership of mid-sized organizations and projects have helped expand business capabilities and increase company profitability. He is the CFO and Senior Vice President of IT at the American Academy of Physician Assistants, where he leveraged analytics to streamline the business model and execute their turnaround. Shyam holds an MBA in finance, an MS in international business, and also has a BS in electronic engineering. With that, I'll turn it over to Shyam.
Thank you, David, and welcome. Good afternoon. I'm just going to walk you through a case study of how we have leveraged adaptive planning as well as some of the analytics tools to really transform the business model within our organization. So yeah, so moving on to the first slide, just wanted to give a little bit of background on AAPA. American Academy of Physician Assistants is a national nonprofit. We represent the physician assistant, which is one of the fast-growing professions, and also which is transformative from the standpoint of providing, playing a key role in the healthcare transformation that's happening right now, and really being a change agent by influencing team-based healthcare. So we represent around 45,000 PAs in the nation. There are 120,000 of them, and then there's a high likelihood that you're going to see more and more of physician assistants and nurse practitioners as you go in for a checkup or a flu shot or any of the primary care interventions. So I joined the organization last year, and one of the first challenges was really understanding the pieces of the business model, and how do we really get our arms around forecasting. So what we really needed was to be able to drill down into the individual variables that impact forecasting, to understand revenue drivers and expense drivers, to be able to look at operating dependencies, and at the end of it, gather all the data in one place. So our forecasting challenge was around dealing with multiple data sets, multiple systems that held the data, not just financial data but also operational data, and trying to pull all of them into a single dashboard, and then drill down into the transactions to be able to really understand what are the key revenue and expense drivers. So in order to do that, we really started looking at business intelligence, and to be further clear, it's visual business intelligence that we started leveraging on. And when we did an RFP, we had looked at traditional systems, but what we really wanted to do is to have one single system through which we can gather all the data, we can store all the data, we can analyze all the data, and also visually look at data the way it needs to be. So our requirements were for a better business intelligence and forecasting solution, but minimal entry cost. We did not want to stand up servers. Our goal was to really rapidly deploy it with minimal involvement from the IT folks, and integrate it with the GL. So we had a Solomon-based general ledger system, which is Microsoft Dynamics, and at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that the system was able to integrate with Microsoft Dynamics. So we did an RFP, and we actually chose, after an exhaustive search, we ended up choosing adaptive planning. Talk about some key pieces of the solution that we leveraged. The adaptive planning is actually a full-fledged BI platform. We look at it as it not only helps you from a data integration perspective, putting the budgeting model, rolling up all the individual projects and tasks and department level forecasts. At the end of it, also be able to provide a visual representation from a BI perspective as to how the organization is doing. So we fully leverage adaptive planning not only as a forecasting and budgeting tool, but actually as a monthly dashboard that we bring in the individual departments and have a one-to-one discussion to look at what is the budget, what is the variance, and then drill down into the cause of the variance. So we actually use it on just a traditional budgeting tool. We actually use it as a mechanism to speak to our other departments. And now, after a year and a half of using the solution, not only does the staff in the organization see our value, but actually the board sees a lot of value because they see this as a tool for delivering transparency. So we are able to now actually use the tool to engage with our board members to help them understand revenue and expense drivers. So I want to run through a few slides. David, moving on to the next slide. The one that I'm going to spend some time on is the visual business intelligence, because I think it's what differentiates adaptive planning from many of the solutions out there. And I can apologize for the slide time delay we have as we switch the slides. Just a couple of slides, and David, you can start rolling them through as we speak. The first key task we use is to analyze the revenue and expense drivers. Again, here we are talking about drilling down into the key performance objectives, really understanding by the department, by the task, as to what is the trend, or what is the actual driver. And again, you could have KPIs by specific projects, by tasks, by goals, by departments. The system is very flexible to be able to figure out, to put a roll-up tree the way we want it. In addition to that, also the other capability is running what-if scenarios and running some scenario modeling. So here we could actually have 3 different scenarios in within the budget, same budget. So you could have, depending on the type of drivers you want to incorporate, you could do what-if scenarios with the with a very conservative version of a budget, or you could have you could change the drivers to say, okay, what if there are XY3 drivers coming out of the healthcare reform, and how does that impact your revenue and expenses? So you could have different versions of the budget, and I think that's very key, especially in a dynamic environment like what we are at this moment. Again, I do want to stress on visualization. I want to take a couple of minutes. Why visualization? A lot of times, traditional CFOs, many of us are used to looking at spreadsheets, looking at understanding variances, and really getting our messaging right. What visualization helps is actually help us communicate with our peers in the organization, with our board members, and really walk them through the budget, not by throwing tables at them, but actually showing them the graphs and succinctly capturing some of the message points. The advantage of something like adaptive planning is it actually comes in with a robust visualization tool set, the visual discovery as they call it, that really helps you actually automate some of the dashboarding process. So we could actually take a snapshot of a dashboard right from adaptive planning and plug it into our PowerPoints as we communicate with our board members. This is just an example of some of the graphs that we can build out of adaptive planning. Again, it could be incident type, production trends. So as CFOs and as finance executives, we can actually talk the operational language, because we are not only able to look at revenue and expense drivers, but then talk about operational trends and talk about what is the business model change that we need to inculcate to really transform, to make the transformative impact within the organization. So a tool like adaptive planning actually helps us put those message points together. Moving to the next slide. And again, you could look at revenue trends, production trends, because safety issues. It depends on the industry. This is highly customizable, depending on the type of drivers you want to highlight. Next. So again, to summarize, from a dashboard perspective, essentially we are looking at these what-if scenarios, but also communicating it back to the executive team in terms of what is the financial impact, what is the margin impact, what is the profitability impact, and also how does it impact the overall strategic plan of the organization. So adaptive planning then at that point of time actually becomes the bridge between the finance department and the rest of the organization in terms of communicating how we are doing with respect to our strategic plan. Well, I have a few slides talking about how we are going beyond the traditional planning model, but also incorporating some predictive analytics. So within our organization, we have a lot of drivers that impact our revenue streams. We have revenues coming from membership dues. We have some conference revenues that is entirely dependent on attendance figures. We have a strong education portfolio, CME-based revenues that we get, and a lot of these we have now we are building an ability to really predict some of the drivers that impact those, and then build them back into adaptive planning. So we have historically used SPSS Modeler to do some of the predictive analytics, but never did we feed that back into our models. we started doing that late last year, wherein we work closely with our statisticians and modelers to really understand what are the membership drivers and how do they look at membership 3 to 5 years. And that way, when we do a 3-year budget, we really can incorporate some of the predictive modeling into our budget. This is another example of going beyond the traditional view, but really looking at tools that could help you incorporate predictive modeling into your forecasting. Well, so some of the things that we do with SPSS Modeler, again, we build decision trees. We do some exploratory data analysis based on the tools we have. We also use SPSS extensively to understand from a membership perspective, individual marketing campaigns, what kind of lift can a certain campaign have. And a lot of, much of, for example, our marketing budget is built around specific campaigns. So again, here is an example of how we step beyond just a traditional financial role, but really partner with the marketing department, for example, to understand what is the uplift because of a certain campaign, and how do you take that data back into your model, and how do you feed it back to ensure that your financial forecast is robust enough to capture all the nuances around marketing campaigns. So that's one example. We are trying to really build predictive modeling into every part of the organization, not just within finance, and this is a good way to standardize on a specific tool set to be able to do that. So I'm not going to go through each one of them, but essentially we, for those who have an academic interest around how some of the things we do with modeling, we again, I talked about some of the things like the recency, frequency, and monetary value scores, which is traditionally used in the marketing environment. We do sampling join and also other types of sorting and aggregation around membership data. We have a lot of clinical data also that we have from our members, and a lot of times we would model that to figure out what is the royalty stream, for example. So there are numerous ways in which we leverage SPSS modeling. But in conjunction between SPSS predictive modeling with adaptive planning, we have really taken our organization a long way, because now we are able to understand the impact of certain cyclicality around certain events or specific drivers that would impact the way we are going to we also have a better understanding of our cash flows as a result of ebbs and flows around the revenues and expenses. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Christine so she can walk you through adaptive planning. And David, thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. So my name is Christine Fitzpatrick. I work for Adaptive Planning, and I've been with Adaptive Planning for about 7 years. So I'd like to give you a little bit of a background on adaptive planning. I only have a handful of slides, and I'm going to spend most of my time today within the product itself. So adaptive planning is a corporate performance management tool and also a business intelligence tool. And really, we empower financial and operating executives to transform their budgeting, forecasting, reporting, and analysis via the cloud. And why is that important? It allows you to save time and money. We will provide you the tools to make better decisions faster. Adaptive will fundamentally change how you run your business. We provide the only cloud business analytics solution that gives you a 360-degree view of your organization's performance, past, present, and future. The Adaptive Suite includes planning, consolidation, and discovery. Each product is an individual solution that stands out on its own as the best of breed in the cloud. Our solutions also seamlessly integrate with one another in a powerful cloud platform. We've achieved the perfect balance of powerful and flexible features with an intuitive and easy customer experience in a suite of products that requires only a web browser to be used. Managers spread across multiple geographic locations can collaborate and contribute jointly in a secure environment with minimal coordination from finance. We're constantly improving our products and deliver new software updates to our customers every 90 days. So as I mentioned before, we're in the business of providing software as a service. Our subscription model only works if our customers, oops, we're going a little too far now, only works if our customers are happy and renew. So our customer success is really our most important metric. Year after year, we've been in the top rankings, and this year we received a 4.94 out of 5, which is the highest overall satisfaction score of any vendor has ever received. Now, that was just a quick introduction into adaptive planning, but I know that you are waiting for the product demonstration. So with that, I'd like to jump into the model itself. All right, so I'm sharing my screen with everyone, and I'm logged into an adaptive planning model, which is showing the full adaptive suite, discovery, planning, and consolidation. We'll focus today mainly on planning and discovery. Currently, you're viewing a discovery dashboard page. We'll do a little intro here, but then I'm going to come back to this at the end. So here on this screen, you'll notice I have charts and dashboards that display metrics that are relevant to me. Everyone's model can look different and display the metrics that are, of course, important to you. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll notice a version drop-down menu, and we'll see this throughout the demonstration. This is the list that will hold your various budgets, your forecasts, your what-if scenarios, and also your actuals. You'll see that right there at the top of the screen, all which are important in budgeting and forecasting, but also within reporting. From here, I'd like to move over to the Sheets tab. The Sheets tab is the main data entry point in adaptive planning, and it's really where our customers tend to spend the most time. You'll see different sheet names across the top in this gray bar, and since we're on the overview page, you'll also see them in a list on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, keep in mind this is just a sample model. Your model can have more or less sheets. Each sheet can have its own unique name. As I click through a few of these, you'll also notice that they have different formats. So I'd like to start by clicking onto the expense sheet. This is an example of a standard data entry template. You'll notice that there are general ledger expense accounts here on the left-hand side, and across the top, you'll notice time. Time is version specific, so you could have a budget which spans for a year. You could have another that spans for 5 or 10 years. It's completely up to you. You can even customize your view so that you can display months, quarters, years, or any combination of the three. This is especially handy if you want that 5 or 10-year version. You probably don't want to show all the months. You can just show annual columns instead. Now in the current view, you'll notice all of these cells have a gray background. The gray background indicates that the cells are read-only. Now read-only because we are currently viewing the consolidated level of this organization. When I expand this level drop-down menu, you'll notice the tiered organizational hierarchy for my company. And this can be tiered out as many levels as you need. When I enter data at a lower department level and save, it automatically rolls up and consolidates to the higher levels. So you're always looking at updated information. Let's move down to the Sales North level. Now you'll notice here, the sheet looks a little different. I have different color coding on the screen. I still have cells with a gray background that are locked down and read-only, but I now also have cells with a white background which are available for data entry. And this color coding is configurable by department. So when your department managers log in, they'll know exactly which accounts you're allowing them to plan in. For these department managers, planning is easy. They can just type in information. They can use their right-click shortcuts menu to copy the information forward. We even have an advanced option, which will allow them to increment or decrement the value. I'll increment by 5%. We can also plan quarterly and annually. So I could type in an annual number here, click Enter, and when I do that, I get a pop-up asking, how do I want to spread this total back into the preceding months? A popular option is the second one here. Essentially, we can look back at your actuals from the prior year, and we can spread this new total using those same proportions. Great if your business is seasonal. I'll just choose evenly for this example. Now, we also have the option of a different view. I'm currently logged into this model as the administrator. Administrators of adaptive planning are typically in the finance department, as there's no IT required. Well, as the administrator, I have access to everything, all departments, all accounts. So I have the option of a different view. I can view a certain account in all of my departments at once. So let's use the telephone account as an example. I'm just going to right-click on it and move into View by Level mode. When I do that, my organizational hierarchy switches places with my accounts. So now I see all my departments here on the left-hand side, and up in the menu at the top, I can see my accounts, and we're currently viewing the telephone account. By doing this, it's a great view to audit what people have budgeted in a certain account. It's also a great place to make a bulk change. I could easily highlight a range of cells, right-click, use my Adjust feature, and let's just say we want to decrease telephone by 10% in these departments. I can put that in here and adjust values, click Apply, and that's done all at once in all of those departments. I'd like to move back now into View by Account mode and talk about how we can add some additional notes and explanations to the budget. Now, one great way to add notes is by adding row-level detail beneath an account. I just highlighted this row called New Hire Training. It rolls up to my training account. This is called an account split. Account splits are unique to the department they are built in, so they won't clutter other departments' views, and they can also be drilled down upon in a report. I can easily add another one here. I'll call this one Manager Training. When I click OK, you'll notice my new row is popped in there. I can plan in this row, and my total will roll up to the training account. So that's row-level detail. We can also add cell-level detail. In my maintenance account in March, you'll notice $5,000, and in the upper right-hand corner, you'll probably recognize that small red triangle. That's a cell note. Our cell notes are also handy on reports because they can be made visible as footnotes. It's nice that your notes move with your data, so you don't have to click back and forth between reports and sheets to see your explanations. Now, one last feature I'd like to point out here is our Cell Explorer. It's this magnifying glass that you'll see up here in the toolbar. This allows us to drill down into anything formula-driven so that we can see the full evaluation of the formula and get down to the lowest level of detail. So I've selected my telephone account here in April. We have $224 in that cell. Let's choose that Cell Explorer button. When I do that, you can see the formula. Now, the formula looks a bit different than your Excel-based formulas. Adaptive planning uses all the same operators Excel would, but instead of a cell position like A5 or B7, we reference your account names. So in this example, I have an account from my personnel sheet called FTEs, so I'm counting up my FTEs, and then I'm multiplying them by an assumption called telephone per head in the U.S. Now, these are the names of my account, so I recognize them. In your model, you would have the names of your accounts, so those would be easily recognizable to you. So essentially here, we're multiplying a head count multiplied by our rate. Beneath, you can see exactly how the formula has been evaluated. 5.6 FTEs multiplied by $40. Let's keep drilling down. I'm going to drill into that FTE number. Now I can see all the employees associated in this department. And to the right of each name, I can see the individual FTE values that they're contributing to the formula in this month. So you can see how this can be very helpful. You can drill down into salaries, taxes, benefits, anything headcount driven, and see that broken down by employee. Now, there's also security around this. So when your department managers log in, they're only going to see the employees and the department information that they manage. They will never see information that you don't want them to. Up above, you'll notice a View Audit Trail link. Audit Trail is tracking all of the changes made to your model, and it is a searchable feature. So you can search changes made by a certain user, changes made within the last hour or last day, and you can always track down who changed what. Now from here, I'd like to talk a bit more about personnel planning. For most of our customers, personnel is the largest expense for their company, so we make it very easy for you to plan your employees in as much detail as you want. You'll notice that my payroll and taxes and benefits accounts on this sheet are all locked down and they're formula-driven. Look at cells, you you can see the formula right up here in the formula bar that links to the personnel sheet. So to update any of these numbers here, we'd update our personnel sheet, save, and it would flow through and update these numbers. So let's move over to the personnel sheet. Now this type of sheet is configurable, meaning you can have any number of columns. Each column can have its own unique title and format. So for example, this name column, it's just text. My title column is a drop-down menu, and you can have any number of choices you want in a drop-down like this. My start and end dates are selected from calendar menus. Adaptive planning can automatically prorate anything associated with an employee based on these actual dates. We have other items here such as health benefits, pay rates, which can be annual or hourly. But I'd like to show you, sliding all the way over to the right, you'll notice I have these monthly columns. Now they're completely optional, but they're very handy if you ever need to allocate or split out your headcount. We find this to be very common with project-based employees, with our nonprofit customers. Essentially, we can allocate employees to different regions, departments, projects, programs, but you only have to plan for them one time. Let's look at this employee, William Clark. You'll notice that his home department is Sales North, but I actually have them split between the North, Canada, and the UK based on the percentages that you see here each month. What adaptive planning will do is split out everything associated with him based on these percentages so they don't have to plan for him more than one time or accidentally double or triple count him in other departments. Now all of the data that you see here can be imported. It can come from an HR database, from a payroll system, or just in an Excel spreadsheet. But once it's in adaptive planning, you can easily make manual changes here in this screen as well. Now speaking of actuals, I'd briefly like to move back to my expense sheet to talk about how we bring in our actuals from the general ledger. Now actuals can be brought in via Excel or via a direct connection to that system. Now that's very simple to build out. We connect to really any source system, so we don't have any limitations there. But essentially, once that connection has been made, you can import the data on a scheduled basis, so every day, every week, once a month, or you can just run it on demand as well. Now, alternatively, many of our customers choose to just download a trial balance from their GL, paste it into our simple Excel template, and upload it into adaptive planning. Either way, once your actuals are in adaptive planning, you can easily do variance analysis reports and create forecasts. So I'd like to move, I'm just opening up my version menu, from my working budget version into my Q1 forecast. Here, you'll notice January, February, and March are now displayed with that gray background, and the font is in a green font for these months. The green font indicates that these are actuals. I only had to import them once. They live within my actuals version, but I can display them in any of my other versions as well. So this is very handy for creating forecasts, and it's also very handy for using these within a budget. Maybe I want some sort of budget number to be 10% over my actuals from last year. It's very easy to reference those within formulas. Now I'd like to move back into my budget version and talk a little bit about sales and revenue planning. I'm going to jump over to my product sales sheet. Now this sheet is a cube style sheet. At first glance it looks very similar to that standard sheet where I have accounts on the left hand side and I have time across the top. But you'll notice now I have additional drop-down menus in the upper right-hand corner. So I have my levels with my org structure. But now I also have a menu called Product and another one for Customer. Now Product and Customer are items that we call dimensions. You can have as many dimensions as you'd like within your adaptive model. A dimension, is simply a title and an associated drop-down menu that can be tiered. And by adding these additional dimensions to the sheet, I'm able to plan at a greater level of detail. So here I am planning my units and my price to come up with my revenue for each product and customer combination. Now what's handy about the cube style sheet is the ability to swap my axis. So right now if I needed to enter in the units I was going to sell for each of my products, I'd have to enter them for product A1, save, toggle to the next product, save. It could be very time consuming. Well, with the cube sheet, I can just grab my product menu, drag it over here, drop it on my units account, I now have all of my products on the left-hand side, and I can plan my units all on one screen. So very helpful. Now we also have another type of sales planning sheet, which is very handy for those companies that have revenue recognition issues. It essentially will allow you to plan a booking or plan a sale, and then spread that revenue over the appropriate period of time without building any formulas. So very handy. I'm not going to go through all the sheets in this model today. We just don't have the time. All of the data planned at these lower levels, though, is rolling up to the consolidated level of this organizational hierarchy. Here you'll notice I have full financial statements, P&L, balance sheet, cash flow. All of these are formula-driven. There's no data entry that needs to occur at this level. Now from here, I'd like to jump over to my Workflow tab. Workflow is where we can submit and approve the budget at each level. So when a department manager finishes their budget, they can submit it for review. Once submitted, an email will get sent to the appropriate manager. They can come in here, review the information, and then either approve or reject. If it's approved, it would continue up the approval chain. If it's rejected, it gets kicked back to that manager. They can revise their numbers and submit again. So this not only is just a status tracker, it's also an additional level of security. Essentially, as each level is submitted and approved, it will become locked down and read-only. So these managers can still come back and view their budget, run their reports, but they won't be able to make any other changes to their final numbers. Now from here, I'd like to jump over to reporting. We think of reports as a window into our database. We planned all of our data on the Sheets tab. We imported our data from our general ledger. Now, with reports, we can view all of that information, compare it side by side with really any formatting you choose. We've designed our reports using a simple drag-and-drop report builder, which means you as the administrator or any of your users can create their own reports very simply without having to get IT involved. You'll notice we have some folders here on the left-hand side. You can create your own subfolders beneath these for organizational purposes. I'd like to run 2 reports today from my favorites folder, beginning with the one at the top, my current month expense variance analysis. Now, this is probably one of the most common types of reports we see in adaptive planning because here we are comparing versions side by side. I have my actuals versus my budget. I also have a few different variance columns. I've also renamed one of my columns a research. I've applied some conditional formatting to this column so I can set some rules. I can say, well, you know, if something is red flagged, you need to research it and provide an explanation. At the top, I have some filters. So right now, I'm viewing a consolidated report, but I could easily filter this based on any of the levels within my organizational hierarchy. Now, there are a few ways to drill into the report. You can drill into an account and go down to the different levels within the organizational structure. Or I can drill into the actual numbers to see the transactional level detail behind them. So if we're looking at this report, we see the meals account has a red flag next to it, and that you can see that my actuals coming in around $2,000 are much higher than my $425 budget. Well, maybe something was booked incorrectly in this account, or maybe the expense just came in higher, but how do we know? I can click on this actual number and drill into transactions. This is going to show me the journal entries, invoices, everything that is making up this total. Now these are fields, these are just sample fields here across the top. You may have a vendor field, additional descriptors, but here I can see all of the items that add up to this total. What's nice about this is that you don't have to log back into your general ledger to do that research. And for your department managers who likely don't have access to the general ledger, they can do all this research themselves within adaptive planning without having to go ask the finance department. Now the second report I'd like to show you is going to export directly into Excel. Our reports can be run within Adaptive, as I just showed you, within PDF and Excel. This Excel-based report that I'm going to run right now, I've called it my monthly reporting package, is not just an export of a report. It's what we call a report template. Now you probably have report books that you've set up in Excel with multiple tabs that you have to refresh monthly or quarterly. Well, that's what this is. It's your template in Excel with all of your formatting, but Adaptive Planning will refresh all the numbers automatically for you. So you can see here, this is my example of my cover page, and I have multiple tabs in this Excel workbook. The last two tabs, Report Data and Report Info, these are the tabs that Adaptive looks for and refreshes each time this report is run. You'll notice I have full financial statements, even charts within this report, and they all link back to that Report Data tab. So all you have to do is set it up one time, upload it to Adaptive Planning as a template, and then from now on, you can just allow Adaptive Planning to refresh your information for you. Finally, within reporting, I'd like to show you how we can build reports very simply. I mentioned that the simple drag and drop report builder. Over on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see all of the dimensions and elements that would be in your model. All you have to do is simply expand items. I'll just grab my revenue accounts, drag those into rows. I'll grab some time, drag that into columns. I can do any type of formatting up at the top of the report, and I can right-click on items to rename them, format them, change their properties. So it's very simple for your users and as an administrator to create reports. When you save the report, you can save it as your own personal report, or you can choose to share it with your other users of Adaptive Planning, meaning that when they run the report, they'll see the same layout, the same format, but they'll only see the data that they manage. Now from here, I'd like to go back to where we started, which is the Discovery tab. Now Discovery is our BI visualization tool. It can report on data coming from Adaptive Planning and from other source systems. So here at the top, you'll notice it says Finance, and as I hover over it, a little menu comes down. These are the different perspectives that I've set up in my model. The idea of a perspective is that you group graphs and dashboards together, and then you assign perspectives to your users so that they only see the graphs that are relevant to them. Also in this bar across the top, as I move over to the right, I can expand this, and this is my context detail. Now, this is an extremely important discovery. Within this context detail pane, I can shift my time, I can view quarters or years, I can filter my organizational hierarchy or different dimensions. And when I do this in this context detail pane, I filter every single graph within my entire perspective, so I don't have to go graph to graph to make these changes. At the top, you'll notice a scorecard style graph, probably the most common one we see used within Discovery. Here, we can set up different zones and trends associated with each metric. We also have email alerts associated with these zones and trends, so you don't even necessarily need to log in to view this information. Jumping over to my revenue dashboard, I'd also like to show you how we can drill down into information. Essentially, you can drill down into the lowest level of detail within Adaptive. We'll stick with my product sales by geography graph. Here we are viewing sales revenue. Let's click on this U.S. portion of the pie chart. Here I can expand customer, product, location. Let's expand products for this example. And from here, I'll drill into product group A, and we'll look at which customers we sold that to. Now, you'll notice as I drill into this graph, I'm not replacing my original graph with a new one. I am getting a hierarchical drill tree where my path of exploration is highlighted in green. So we can drill down, we can drill across, but we can always find our way back to our original drill by following this path. Very important, and also a great way to share information with your peers. We can also add additional analysis to these graphs right on the fly. As I hover over a graph, you'll notice a little menu pops up in the right-hand corner. Here, I can add trendline analysis, statistical analysis, etc. Here, let's just add a linear trend line to this. It may not be that exciting since it looks like a straight line. But here, you could save it this way. So if you always wanted a linear trend line on this graph, it could appear this way. Or I can always choose to set it back to my standard view. These graphs can also be put into presentations. You can take a snapshot of individual graphs, or in the upper right-hand corner, you can do a printer-friendly view. I'll show you what that looks like. It basically creates a nice PDF of your graphs or your dashboard, and you can see that it can have your company logo in the upper left-hand corner of the page as well. Now, just like our Reports tab, These graphs can be easily created within the Visual Designer. It's a drag and drop format. Your end users can create their own graphs, or as the administrator, you could set them up for them and then give them access to those. So all very easy to set up. Now with that, I'd like to conclude the product demonstration, and I'm going to turn it back over to David so that we can start our Q&A session.
Thank you, Christine. It's very insightful and a lot of information there. As we transition back to the Q&A session, I just want to remind everybody that if you do have questions, please use the question box in your GoToWebinar, and we will try to get your questions answered in the Q&A session here. 1 second as I begin to show my screen, and we'll be moving to the Q&A. Okay, for our first question, how does Adaptive handle the multiple currencies?
That's a great question, and I did not cover that in the product demonstration. I apologize. So multiple currencies are handled using the level menu. So that was the menu that held the organizational hierarchy. Essentially, you can assign a currency to each level. So when you're planning in that department, you plan in local currency. Based on exchange rates that you've entered in the system, which are all monthly and version specific, those numbers automatically convert during the consolidation. So we use multiple exchange rate types, including historical exchange rates, and we also have an automatic cumulative translation adjustment, which is very difficult to calculate on your own or in Excel.
Great. And next question comes for Sean. Ask, when you're building your revenue forecasting model, how much of that were you able to do yourself, and how much did you need help from Adaptive?
We actually did. We had our staff getting trained with Adaptive, so we did use some of the professional services with Adaptive, but much of the model was done in-house by our staff, and a lot of it is very intuitive. So the short answer is you can go back to Adaptive for clarification and for guidance, but they have a lot of great tools and resources where your staff can do it on your own.
Okay, and another question came back for Christine. Could you talk a little bit about payroll information and how you handle that?
Sure. So from the planning side, we would hold that payroll information or the personnel information on a personnel type sheet. And I demoed just one of those sheets today. Many of our customers have multiple personnel sheets in their model, maybe one for existing employees, another one for new hires, where you're really capturing different data associated with those individuals. You don't know as much about your new hires, so you don't need as many fields. But essentially that data can be put on those sheets, assumptions can be associated with them, and that data would then flow into the appropriate general ledger and statistical accounts in your model. We also have the ability for you to upload actual payroll information by individual as well if you do want to create some type of variance analysis reports where you're doing that by individual employee as well.
Okay, and the next question comes asking about intercompany transactions. Can this process handle those?
Absolutely, and that's something that I did not cover in the demo today. That is handled within Adaptive Consolidation. That's our newest addition to the Adaptive Planning family of products. We can handle intercompany transactions, percent ownership or minority interest. All of that happens within Adaptive Consolidation. It can happen on your actuals from your general ledger. It can also happen with your budgets as well. So you just get to decide how you set up the rules and where you want to apply the rules within your model.
And one last question here before we move to the outro portion of our presentation. The question is statistical information. How can you capture that, and how can you measure statistical information in your model?
Sure. So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Kristen.
Okay. Statistical information in Adaptive is held the same way as your general ledger information. We hold it in accounts. Accounts are just places for us to hold numbers or formulas. So just like you'd have your general ledger accounts for planning purposes, you'd have statistical accounts as well for handling headcount or any other operational type metrics you may want to use for planning or for visualization.
Okay. I want to thank you, Sean and Christine, for those insights and discussions. We're sorry if we couldn't get to all of your questions, but we will work with today's speakers to get them answered to you directly after the webinar. A few last housekeeping items before we end today, at which time you'll be prompted to participate in a short survey. We truly value your feedback and appreciate your time to help us continue to deliver great content. At that time, you can easily request a connection with the speakers or the sponsor with a click of your mouse. Please join us on performative.com to continue this great discussion. Just a quick reminder that we'll be holding our CFO Dimension Conference August 21st and 22nd in New York. I would like to personally invite you to this premier event. As a special thank you for attending today's webinar, I'll be sending you each a special discount of $100 off our early bird pricing for those of you who are on the call today and register by June 30th. I want to thank Christine and Sean for their time today and Adaptive Planning for this webinar. They gave us great details of how we can take advantage of the cloud and use this technology to help us more move toward real-time forecasting. Thank you. I'd like to take this time to thank the audience for your time. Again, after we close down the webinar, you'll be prompted to take a short survey. If we can please ask you to participate so we may get better, deliver the right type of content and webinar to you, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, there you'll have the opportunity to request a connection with our speakers, request more information on CFO Dimensions with a click of your mouse. Thank you again. We hope to see you on another Performative event or online at performative.com. Have a great rest of your day. This concludes our webinar. Thank you.